Hello, welcome to VR Roundtable, episode 63. My name is Gary, and I'm joined, as always, we've got a full roster this week. We've got Chris, Steve, and Anthony. Anthony, how are you this week?
I'm doing real good. Looking forward to some football today, and that's pretty much it.
Good stuff. Steve, how are you?
I'm very good. Last week, we didn't, we record on the weekend and then we release on the following Monday, and we probably should have said something in relation to Thanksgiving, but we didn't. We've been doing the show for more than a year, and it's still being Thanksgiving weekend, even though by the time all you listeners get to see this, it'll be Monday the following week. And just wanted to say thanks. That I am thankful for being able to do the show with you guys, and for all of you guys that tune in and watch it. And it's fun for me every week, and I look forward to it.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we should say, we are grateful for everybody who sort of watches the show and comments and leaves reviews for us. That's always great to see. It gives us encouragement to continue this kind of stuff. Chris, how are you?
I'm good. I'm back home again, I guess. It's weird. It's a weird time of year for me because I'm back and forth so much lately, But no, I'm really thankful for the show, and I'm doing good. So finals are soon though, so that's
so for anybody that has kids, as it gets closer to Christmas, or actually on Christmas Eve, they have these apps that you can get for a phone. It's called the Santa Tracker, and you can track where Santa supposedly is. I think we need to make a version. It's the Chris Tracker. Is he at home? Is he at college? Is he at home? Is he on vacation? Like every week he's somewhere else. Like
it's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, I could bring my Vive, but I don't have that big a play space here, so it's a little weird, but I get it done.
He's usually to be found on an electric skateboard somewhere anyway, so that's all good. Just from my point of view, I just want to quickly mention, because yesterday I went to a retro gaming event, there's a place called the Retro Computer Museum. It's only a few miles away from where I live, but they had an event yesterday, and I knew that they had some old virtuality machines, old VR systems in place. So I wanted to go there to this event yesterday and try these out. So I did that, and I just want to report that these show their age, and it's very, very interesting to go back and try these. I tried a couple of pods. There was a stand-up one called Dactyl Nightmare. I think everybody's probably heard of Dactyl Nightmare. It's sort of one of the most famous original wave of VR titles that came out, really. So I tried that out. That was okay. One of the screens on the headset was a little bit damaged, so it didn't quite work perfectly, and one screen was great and the other one was slightly, like, the colors were all washed out and stuff, so I had to get used to that. But yeah, I mean, things that you expect, like latency, field of view, just general graphics and resolution, are all obvious, just for how old this thing is. But it's still, nevertheless, even in spite of all of that stuff, it's still really interesting to try this. The thing about the field of view is when you look through these headsets, and the headsets are very, very cumbersome. You have a controller that's tethered as well, and then you have to wear this pack that goes around your waist. Everything is so heavy, it's really cumbersome. But the headset itself, the field of view, you look through an area which is sort of similar to the Vive, really. It's like an oval, but through that, beyond that, you're looking at a screen beyond that, and that's really the field of view. So you've got this oval that we're used to with the Vive, and then beyond that is a screen where you can turn your head, and it really does feel like you're looking at a screen and just turning your head. It feels like a screen attached to your face. And I tried this when I was 11 years old, this virtuality machines, and it was interesting because I can't remember a great deal about it when I tried it back then. So to just sort of go back and reminisce about what it exactly was like, it was all interesting stuff. But I think as a person who likes VR, it's just it's good to go back and see where it all started, really.
Gary, did you get any pictures?
No, I should have done.
Oh man, it would have been a good picture with you with the virtual reality, that big gigantic contraption on your head.
Yeah, I wanted to get somebody to film it on it, and I wanted to go back. But what it was, when I tried it, it was a bit earlier on in the day, and there weren't too many people there. And I was sort of talking to the guy that was demoing these units a fair bit, and it was just sort of an off the cuff kind of thing where I went into there and tried it. I expected to go back in later on during the day, but I never did, unfortunately. So it would have been great to capture some footage. But like I say, this place, it's very close to where I live, so I will be going back there, and I'll probably get some video footage of me using that at some point. Okay, on with the show, I guess. Anyway, so episode 63, it has been a little bit light on news this week, but we've got a few that we can go through. The first one I want to talk about is the fact that Apple has purchased a VR and AR company called VRvana. Now, these had a Kickstarter back in 2014, which was for a headset called the Totem. And this had sort of inside-out tracking, things that we don't usually expect. So it was sort of a standalone, it was obviously tethered to a PC, but it had inside out tracking, it had motion controllers, and all this kind of stuff. Unfortunately, the Kickstarter didn't get too far. So just after, it was trying to raise $350,000, but then when it got to sort of just past halfway of that goal, it sort of cancelled the Kickstarter and they sort of moved on to different areas. So it never got to completion. But Apple have purchased this, and this is always interesting. We talk about Apple a lot on this show because of their AR interest, and the fact that they've picked up this company further suggests the fact that they're going to be releasing some kind of headset, some kind of AR augmented reality headset at some point in the future in the next couple of years. Chris, I'll go over to you first on this. I know you saw the VRvana Kickstarter originally as well. What do you think that Apple have picked up this company?
I don't know. It's interesting because it's like the first company that has like the buzzword of they're combining VR and AR or whatever. They're trying to kind of combine the technologies. They're the only headset I've seen that actually has pass-through cameras that work like they're supposed to. They're not just for tracking or anything like that. But man, I wish this actually came out like without Apple buying it, because it said it was going to work with Steam VR. It was going to have 120-degree field of view. It was going to be 1440p panels. Like, it was going to be pretty decent if that actually came out, especially all the way back in like 2014, 2015 era. So that's interesting. But yeah, I mean, we don't really know if Apple actually bought them per se, but Apple didn't comment on the story, so take that for what you will, I guess. But yeah, no, it's good. I just wish they'd like show something or give a glimpse of something or do one of the like Facebook things where they showed all their research facilities or something. I don't know, just so I know something's coming.
Yeah, I believe it was they purchased it for a rumored 30 million. But you're right, Chris. I think they neither Apple nor VRvana have actually confirmed this to have happened. VRvana have sort of stopped any sort of social media kind of speaking on social media or any of that kind of stuff since August. This is all sort of leading to these rumors as well. But I think it's safe to say that something has happened between these two companies. Steve, what do you think?
I think it not too much of it. It's what you would expect out of someone like Apple. You expect them to make purchases that have an underlying technology. I don't think they're necessarily going to use the VRvana brand or release this Totem headset, but they may be going after the team or going after some of what they've developed and leverage that tool set, that experience, that technology into an Apple branded AR headset. And like Chris mentioned, I think the big thing here is that it is a headset with cameras that is actually doing pass-through video, and I'm having to assume that they've had technology that allows that to do it without much latency, because I imagine it would be a horrible experience that if you had pass-through video and then you turn to the left and that the video was just a half a second or so behind, how it could make you nauseous and stuff. So hopefully these people have figured it out at VRvana, and then Apple now owns that tech, assuming the rumors are true.
Yeah, or augmented reality, I guess, because we've seen this on the mobile phones as well, like AR kits on the Apple iPhone. They're using video in order to sort of synchronize, so they can synchronize the latency between the video itself and the thing that's being projected onto that video. So it makes it look very, very solid. The difficulty comes on things like HoloLens, where you've got a transparent screen and you're looking at the real world, and then they have to synchronize what's being projected with the real world. So latency is very, very important. It's interesting that VRvana are using this pass-through camera method, because I guess in some ways it makes it easier to synchronize the projection and the video. But But then there are concerns of latency. And as you say, Steve, maybe they've sort of got some kind of technology to minimize latency on the video feed and this kind of stuff. Anthony, what do you think?
Yeah, I saw the story on the headlines, and I really didn't pay attention to it too much because it's like $30 million. See, the thing you got to understand is if I'm walking down the street and I have 2 pennies in my pocket, that's basically the equivalent of Apple spending $30 million. It's like 2 pennies to them. It's like nothing. And what I think, I kind of agree with Steve on this, that is, it's probably a patent or something that VRvana has that could be similar to what Apple is going for. And rather than worry about getting into some kind of lawsuit or something, it's cheaper for them to just spend 30 million and just acquire this company outright. So it could be something along those lines. When I did look at the story and I found out that this is more of a VR related company that is using augmented reality, but they were really having a VR headset. That's kind of interesting from an Apple standpoint, just because we think that Apple has no interest in VR, but we don't know that for sure. They don't have a product that goes head to head with like Gear VR and Daydream. And you would think that eventually they'll have something like that. I mean, I know we all think they're doing this AR thing in 2020, but who knows? But it's not, it's kind of a non-story. For 30 million is nothing really.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, we'll move on because we do talk about Apple and their AR ventures quite a lot on this show, so we don't want to dwell on that news story for too long. The next one is the Doom VFR. Okay, so this, well, it's coming out on the 1st of December, is that right? I think I'm right in saying that, the 1st of December. So this coming Friday, Doom VFR will be coming out. And somebody's actually picked this up. So somebody on the PSVR subreddit actually found this out in the wild at a retail store, and they picked this game up and took it home and tried it, and it worked. And they were just giving some very early impressions on this. So I just wanted to spend a few minutes talking about this, because the one big thing for a lot of people that came out of these reports is the fact that you're able to use smooth locomotion. And I believe the guy who picked this game up actually confirmed that it was smooth locomotion not only with the DualShock but also with the Move controllers. So that would point to when it comes over to other platforms like the PC. So on the HTC Vive, you'll also be able to use the motion controllers with smooth locomotion. But that's great news for me. I don't know too much about what else was discussed in this, these first impressions on this. Anthony, I'll go over to you first. Did you see anything else on this?
Yeah, I mean, he was playing it on a OG PlayStation 4, and he didn't have a PS4 Pro, and he was saying the graphics weren't that blurry. It was pretty good, and he played it with DualShock. He played it with the DualShock 4. He played it with an aim controller, both seated and standing, and he also played it with Move controllers. And the one thing that he said was that playing it on the DualShock 4 was the smoothest experience overall. And he said playing it with the aim, at first he was sitting down, and he said that was not good at all. Then he said when he stood up and played it with the aim, that provided the most immersion, but it didn't always work the best. And then he said that the Move controllers, like he made a comment, like if the Move controllers had sticks, maybe he would revisit it, but that he didn't really like the way the Move controllers were integrated. And I mean, we're playing Skyrim VR now, and it has smooth locomotion. So you kind of figure every one of these Bethesda games is going to have that as some kind of option buried in the menu somewhere. But we just didn't have locked in 100% confirmation of this. And that's what him having this game does. But I mean, this guy having this game, he could play through this entire thing, throw it up on eBay with overnight shipping for like $300. And some YouTuber will buy it immediately and just, so they can stream themselves playing it. So this guy kind of hit the jackpot,
Yeah, he really did. Yeah. Steve, what do you think of this? Did you see any other little insights in his reports?
No, not really anything new that hasn't been discussed, but on the game as a whole, like, I'm not so hung up on locomotion has to be the same in every game, and I think it's like this game has a blink teleport that it's not an instantaneous teleport. It's pretty fast, but you choose where to go, and then you see I guess you kind of move quickly there, I guess, like raw data. And that may fit this game more. Like as I'm playing a game like Skyrim, and it's one reason why I think I prefer it with DualShock, is that I want to move around when I'm in battle. Like Robo Recall has mods and things that you can do, and you can get a smooth teleport with that, a smooth locomotion with that, but I like it better with the teleport. Now, I don't like everything with teleport. Like, I think in general, I prefer smooth, but there are some games, certain play styles that I think lend themselves to other locomotion methods a little bit better. And looking at the trailer and everything for Doom VFR, I'm thinking the Blink teleport may actually be the better way to play this game.
You know, one thing he did mention was that the teleport was tied to the R2 button. And he kind of insinuated that if you were playing this with a DualShock 4 and you were using smooth locomotion per se, you could still hit that R2 button and teleport at the same time. So you can mix and match, which I kind of think that's a great way. Like anytime I'm in a game where it's like teleport or smooth, it's like, give me both options. Sometimes I want to just do smooth locomotion, but sometimes I just want to teleport. And it's nice when you have both options.
Yeah. Chris, are you a teleporter or a smooth locomotioner?
I don't know. Like for a long time, I was teleport only because I was a little motion sick all the time. But, you know, everyone gets over that pretty much. Valve doesn't think so, right? What was that they said? Anyways, but yeah, no, I'm excited for this game, and I agree with Anthony. It's really nice to have both options if you can. Like if there's enough buttons on the controller, that's like the biggest issue, I guess, with that. But it does sound like the gameplay is designed around teleportation, so you can't just only have smooth because then you just have this enemy and you like can't run away quick enough. So I think it's kind of in the game like as a core feature, and I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I wonder if it's like some kind of a reaction to a lot of comments that have come up because people were complaining about the fact that it didn't look like it did have any smooth locomotion or anything like that. But I was sort of under the impression right from the beginning that because this was built for VR, this particular game of the Bethesda 3, you know, you've got Skyrim, Fallout 4, VR, and Doom. Of the three, this was the one that was built for VR from the ground up. It's not the full Doom game. It's a separate game. And I was sort of thinking that this was going to be designed around the teleport mechanic, really. And a lot of the footage that they've shown of it in the past is really showing how the game is designed around this teleport. So I'm interested to see if this is a reaction to some of the comments that have been coming out from people saying, sort of almost demanding smooth locomotion within this game, how the game copes with that, if that is the case. And I guess we'll never really know the true answer to that, but we can certainly comment on when we get to try this, how well each locomotion method works. But yeah, it's interesting either way. And I'm reading these reports of people that have picked these games up because as somebody who is really looking forward to Fallout 4 VR, really looking forward to Doom, and is sort of very, very jealous of people that get to play Skyrim at the moment, all of this stuff is interesting to me. Okay, the next little news story that we've got down here is just a little update on budget cuts. Anthony, I'll go over to you if that's okay on this one. I saw that there was some kind of update, but I didn't read too much about it. What can you tell us?
Yeah, so this is a story from Road to VR, Ben Lang. And what happened was Ben Lang knows one of the developers at Neat Corp. I guess personally probably knows the guy and reached out to him. Now, this is within like the last month or so. He talked to this guy and basically the guy confirmed everything's going, we're working, we got our heads down. We're working on this. We're working on it a lot. It's still coming out. Everything's fine. It's kind of a non-story really, but it's just, budget cuts is still coming. We have it at VR Game Rankings. I have it as a second quarter 2018 release, but I mean, they're still on target for maybe first quarter 2018. The funny thing is like this was available, I believe, April 5th, the day the Vive launched. Will it beat the 2-year anniversary of the Vive launch? That's the question.
That's a good point. Yeah, when you think about the amount of development that's gone into this, and I've said it before, budget cuts for me, I'm hoping really that there's not a surprise with this game in terms of just how different it is from the demo. Everybody loved the demo and it was great, but it was of its time, I think. And I think they need to do something to elevate it above that. However, I will say I hope they've not changed it too much in order to combat that kind of stuff where they've added in all these extra mechanics, all these extra systems just to elevate it beyond too much what it was back then, because I did enjoy it. Steve, Chris, has anybody got anything they want to add on budget cuts at all?
I agree with what you said. I think that right now, like, I'm not even hyped for that game. Like, it was great. I remember that experience back last year. It was, you felt that space, you felt that presence really good. Now, like, if I played that demo right now, I wouldn't be anywhere near as pressed as I was a year and a half ago. And I'm concerned that unless they've changed the game a lot, that it won't be as impressive. Like, literally think of budget cuts now up to the likes of Gallery Episode 2 and all that. It pales in comparison. Even though they had a good mechanic, it pales in comparison. And they really better bring the magic sauce, or it's going to go nowhere, I think.
Yeah, I think they waited too long, and their opportunity to what they really should have done is just added more levels to what the demo is, kind of had the existing mechanics and released it a few months after the demo or something. It's really weird thing to just kind of stop talking and just be developing it for a year plus and with no real updates. I don't know, it's got to be different, but also people don't really want it to be different. It just really should have came out sooner. I think it's super weird. I don't know. You guys feel that too?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly my point really as well. I think because it has been almost 2 years, by the time it's going to be released, hopefully 2 years is a long time, and people's expectations are going to be gradually rising throughout that time. And like I say, maybe if they could have got something out there, even if it wasn't a very long experience, something just a few hours long that they could have got out there, and then maybe started work on a sequel that had developed it a little bit further, maybe that would have been the better view. I mean, this is all speculation, and maybe the game will blow us away when it finally comes out.
You know, it's funny though. Steve was just saying that after playing the Gallery 2, Heart of the Emberstone, the bar has been raised. I don't know that I necessarily now, if you just look just at graphics and just sound design, yeah. But the thing is, when you're in Heart of the Emberstone, you do something and then bam, it's a loading screen. And one of the things about the budget cuts demo is it was the immersion that really shocked people. And it was when you first start budget cuts, when you're in that very first hallway, and it's the simplest hallway in the world. You're looking at the carpet, the windows there, some sunlight is coming in, there's a little potted plant right there, and you're looking at the textures of the walls. It's so simple, but that's part of its brilliance, because being so simple like that, it bounds you into that experience. It feels real. You're there, and there's not a lot of loading. There's not an interruption of the flow. The flow is all the way. You're flowing. There's no stop and start stuff. And when you get into Heart of the Emberstone and stuff like that, yeah, the graphics are a million times better. Sound design is way better. Honestly, all I think Neat Corp needs to bring to the table, the budget cuts demo is about 22 minutes. They just need 9 more of those, or 8 more of those. That is level 1. And now they need another 7, 8 levels. That's all they need. I've said from the beginning, we got the Exorcist first rights. It's $5, for this episodic. It's 25 minutes of gameplay, really, right? And they're selling that. And Neat Corp, man, if they never had this demo, they could have been selling this for almost 2 years. Even if it was $5, are you going to tell me that maybe 500,000 people wouldn't have bought this for $5? I think they would have. And I think they would have bought it, and I think they would have been absolutely happy with it. And so they left a lot of money on the table. That's a huge gamble, but I still think people are going to buy this and love this. So we'll see.
I don't know.
How many of you
budget cuts in anyone's demo list? When people come to your house, do you show budget cuts?
I did actually only once. It's not in my general demo list, but it is for certain people if they're gamers. I think this is the thing. If you've got somebody coming around who likes games, I think it's a great one for those. But it's not really for people that are just experiencing VR and not necessarily coming from a gaming background.
I was just going to ask how many of you guys stuck your head, your Vive or your Rift against the floor and bounced your head off when you looked through the
I did it only just to see what Jeremy from Tested experienced, because I've seen that video where he goes to look through the ground where the ceiling is in the ceiling cavity within that game, and he goes to look through that and bangs his head. So I thought, I'm going to give that a try.
I did bang my head. That's the worst part when I first tried
really?
it. I don't know. Like people I used to demo that way back, like when I first got my Vive, and like a lot of people did that. So that's always fun. You're like, then they're immersed at that point.
We should have a topic sometime where we just talk about what would you use to demo somebody. For me right now, I would probably say first contact is the number one thing I would put somebody in. But the Steam VR tutorial actually is a great first step too.
Yeah. Well, just quickly then, let's just go round, because that's a good idea actually. Because in terms of demoing, I think the Blue for me is still one of the better demoing experiences, just as an all-encompassing experience. There's no interaction, and some of the feedback I get when I have demoed the Blue to people is the fact that they want to interact and touch the world and do things, and the interaction in the Blue is literally just sort of moving fish out of the way. That's really all you can do. So I think the Blue is great as an initial demo, but they quickly want to move on to something else, something with a little bit more interaction. Steve, what about you?
I do the whale first for everyone because it's 40 seconds. It's real short. Do the whale. It gets them, because most people that are trying VR for the first time, they don't know what it is. So the whale gives them the sense of scale, the sense of being able to walk around the bow of the ship a little bit. It gives them great visuals. It gives them good audio. It gives them the sort of the smorgasbord, a sample of everything that VR has to offer, minus, like you say, the interactivity. And then from there, depending on the person, if it's, let's say it's, I don't know, a mom or a grandma or something, I'll kind of stay with passive experiences, maybe something like Alumet or Dear Angelica or Luna, even though it's got some interactivity. If it's more of a gamer, I'll quickly transition to Robo Recall or Echo Arena. Every gamer that I put in VR, they absolutely fall in love with Robo Recall, because it's so overwhelming. They get all the space. I tell them, like, before going into it, I'm like, okay, in this game, your guns will be at your hip. When you're out of ammo, just throw the gun. A new one will regenerate. You can grab bullets. You can rip the robots' heads off. I tell them all this stuff, and then they get in there and they've forgotten everything I've just said, like 60 seconds prior, because they are overwhelmed with the sensation. And like, to me, there's really, for a gamer, there's nothing better than Robo Recall, because it's quick to the point. You don't need the story. You don't really even need to explain the controls too much, because it's relatively intuitive in the way that it just operates with the touch controllers. That's my path generally. And then if someone's going to spend more time, maybe Echo Arena, or I'll just kind of run through my list. At that point, it's all over the map. I might get into Audio Shield. Google Earth is in the rotation usually, but going back to budget cuts, it's kind of fallen out. I don't really go back to it anymore.
Yeah,
I think. Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
Okay. Yeah, let's see. I do Google Earth a lot. I don't know, just because it's so great and I can run the tutorial and people don't really have to do anything. So that's nice. But it sucks because after that, it has all these things you're supposed to do, all these advanced things like zoom in, flip the world, and then everyone gets confused. But at least the guide is great. I used to do the Blue. I don't know, just something about the Blue's graphics are just like so crisp, than like more than any other game or experience I've tried in a while. Like I like the kind of deep sea one where it's really dark and like you can see like little crabs moving around. I don't know, just that one's something about it, all the particles and stuff.
Well, that is a good one, Chris, actually, because on that one you've got a torch. You can hold a torch, and I think that even that very, very minor level of interaction helps sort of immerse people within there.
Yeah, Robo Recall is always great. For a while, I kept like resetting a profile so they could just see the initial thing with the TV and all the robots getting like zapped. Everyone gets scared by that, so that's fun. But no, yeah, I don't know that, and then Super Hot. Obviously, everyone loves that. Like, I don't know, especially in my generation, for some reason, they're all go crazy for Super Hot. They're just like, I want to play Super Hot every time they come over. I'm like, okay, there's all these other games though, but. All right. Gorn now too. You should mention that. They love Gorn. My friends love Gorn. So
Yeah, Gorn is a good game. It's quick and it's easy as well.
But see, I don't put people in Gorn because I'm afraid that they're just going to put a hole in my wall. Like, because that game, you get out of control real quick. You got newbies that don't understand, the chaperone and guardian and stuff as well. And even though you explain it to them, they forget what they're doing. You're a bold man putting newbies in Gorn.
That's a very good point. My wall's been hit almost every time I show someone Gorn. So,
Tiltbush,
one of my worries with I was going to say the Steam VR tutorial, that's something I would always put people in. But I had one guy, it was one of my son's friends was over here, and I put him in the Steam VR tutorial. And when you get to the part with the balloons, you're blowing balloons with your controllers. Well, he starts hitting the balloons, and then he jumps up and smacks the hell out of my controller on the ceiling trying to hit a balloon. You just never know what someone's going to do. And then the other thing is, you never know what could trigger somebody from a fear standpoint, because like my wife, the first VR experience I put her in was Steam VR tutorial. And you start off in that white room. And I don't know if I had like the audio for the headphones like way too high or something, but the part where like it goes zzz, 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 and all the desks are like flipping up and the chairs are flipping around and stuff. Just that, like she was just looking at that and she's like, oh, hell no. And she like took the headset off and couldn't deal with it. And then like for grandmas and stuff, I usually would put them in the blue, but sometimes they get freaked out by like a giant well. And they're like, one thing I've noticed with a lot of people is it's almost like a lot of people have a built-in fear of VR. And I think some people think VR is like so much better than it really is. And they think I'm going to get in this and it's just going to overwhelm my entire senses and I'm not going to know what's going on. Some people they might have been watching too many episodes of Black Mirror or something and they think it's better than it really is. Oh, PlayStation VR, a good demo to put people in PlayStation VR is PlayStation VR World's The Shark Tank. Like I've put a couple different people into that because it's kind of passive and you're just now if they get to the shark and they can handle it, that's a whole nother story. A lot of times I end up taking the headset off before they get to the shark.
Hey, that's fun. I actually tried that one because it was as a Best Buy demo, so that's good.
That was my first ever VR experience ever in any way. Wow. Like it's what made me go out and buy Vive that weekend. I also do the second level of Rush of Blood, which is what they had on the demo, because it's the one that has all the pigs heads and stuff. It's pretty jacked up, but only it has to be a gamer that has admitted that they're not, they don't get scared easy, because otherwise I wouldn't put anybody in that one.
So don't put me in that one, is what you're saying.
Yep.
Well, also my grandmother, I showed her Henry. That was the first thing, and that was great. I think that was great for old people.
Dream Deck on Oculus is really good too. That's a good one.
Yeah. There's so many, really, when you start diving into it and you think, why haven't I put more people into this when they've come around for the first time? That's the regret, actually. Sometimes when people do come around and they try VR, I think beforehand, which one should I show them? And then as soon as they've experienced one and they sort of take to the one that I didn't really think they would, then that could lead me on to other things that I would have chosen to try them out in that would have appealed to them far more. I mean, I mentioned budget cuts earlier. I do demo that to people that like sort of gamers, I guess, because it's got the stealth mechanic in that. And I think that's interesting in VR because you do have to sort of duck down and around things and it gives you that physical element in demos. But yeah, there's a lot to try out in VR. Okay, the last little news story that we've got down here, and this, well, I say little news story. This is, I think, it's sort of quite significant, really, in some ways, because Skyrim on PSVR has actually outsold Skyrim for the Switch in the UK on the week of its release. So this is significant in some ways because nobody really expected this for a start, and the install base of Switch is sort of far higher than it is for PSVR. And also the thing that makes it sort of slightly satisfying is the fact that mainstream games media has more or less ignored Skyrim VR while covering Skyrim on the Switch to death, which is sort of frustrating as a fan of VR. And I say more or less ignored. They've not ignored it entirely. IGN and GameSpot have both covered Skyrim on PSVR, but they really don't cover it in any significant way, certainly not to the extent that they cover it on the Switch. Anthony, I'll go over to you first on this. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously great news. And there's another little sidebar story to this. This was, I believe, GFK, the chart trackers in the UK where they keep track of this, at number 20, because Skyrim VR, I think, was at number 19. And then I think Skyrim for the Switch was like number 26. But at number 20 was PlayStation VR Worlds. And that was shocking as well. And a lot of people were saying, oh, the reason that one jumped up to number 20 is because so many people are buying all these bundles, and PlayStation VR Worlds is included with the bundles. So basically what this really is there's been an explosion of new PSVR owners that are coming into the fold, especially in England. Just a lot. I mean, there's been so many great deals in England. That there was a deal recently. It was the World's bundle with Skyrim, and you basically got Skyrim thrown in free. It was even better than the deal that I saw like a few days earlier. So there's been lots of aggressive deals, and it's great because we're just adding more and more people into the fold. And one worry I have, though, is like a brand new noob coming aboard and jumping into Skyrim VR, which is Skyrim, whatever you say about it, it's complicated as far as the controls go. And so that would be my only real worry there, but great news otherwise.
Chris, what did you think of this?
Yeah, it's good news. I figured since we're talking about all these like deals and stuff, we also mentioned that the Rift went on sale for Black Friday for $249, so that's cool. Still getting lower somehow. Oculus somehow making all these sales all the time. But yeah, no, yeah, the Switch is really popular in my college, and it seems like VR is kind of starting to increase a lot, especially every time I show somebody, they're like, hey, how much is that? Isn't it like 800? I'm like, no, it's like, you know, 350 now. I can say now it's 350, and they're gonna be like, whoa. Like whenever I say it's 399 for a Rift, people are like, I'm gonna get that. And so I think VR is finally getting to that point where people can jump in after having a good experience. So that's really exciting.
Yeah. Just before I pass it over to Steve, because we can get your thoughts on this news story, but then also I want to sort of lead into some more talk about Skyrim after that. But before I go over to you, I just wanted to mention, because I spoke just briefly about IGN and GameSpot, who were discussing Skyrim, and IGN were relatively fair, I felt. I think that they had some good opinions on it, and they stuck with it. You know, on their latest podcast that they had, Beyond, they were talking about Skyrim VR, and they were speaking. You know, they were saying that the graphics not perfect. There's resolution issues and this kind of stuff. But they were also saying how it's just when you're in there and you're immersed within that world, it's great, and you can sort of ignore some of that stuff. GameSpot, on the other hand, when I was listening to their podcast, The Lobby, they sort of stuck with the Switch version for a very long time, and we're talking about that. And then they went on to Skyrim VR, and it felt more or less like an obligation that they had to just mention Skyrim VR. And the guy there at the end, the host of the show, I believe, he was just talking about how he's interested in picking up Skyrim for the Switch, but he's not really interested in picking it up for the PSVR at all. And to me, I feel like that was almost like maybe I'm wrong, and it feels like a contrived opinion at that point, because he'd already acknowledged that he'd played Skyrim to death on other platforms. Now you're playing it on the Switch. It's the same game. It's the same game on a portable platform, and that's okay. I'm sure it's got its advantages, and I'd love to play Skyrim on the Switch as well. But to completely dismiss the PSVR version after talking about that just felt a little bit contrived to me. I don't know if anybody's got any thoughts on that, because it feels like they're just ignoring PSVR unfairly, really. How can you have interest in playing a game that you've already played to death in a very, very slightly different format, and have no interest in playing it in a completely different way, being immersed in that world? It just it was a bit annoying when I was listening to that podcast. So I just wanted to mention that quickly. Anyway, Steve, what did you think of this news story about the PSVR version of Skyrim's outselling Switch?
I think it deserves that, right? Like, I don't have a Switch, and I think the Switch is a good concept. You know, my son wants a Switch. I can't say I don't want a Switch. in some ways, for travel or something. Maybe the Oculus Go will circumvent any of that desire. But at the end of the day, Skyrim with a Switch is largely going to be the exact same experience, just portable. And I don't know if the graphics are tuned down for the Switch versus, say, like the PS4 special edition or something like that. But in VR, it's hard to describe because I never really played Skyrim outside of VR, so I don't have that A/B comparison. But man, it feels so good in VR. Like it's not without its flaws. It's not without, there are control issues. There's, if you're using the moves, there are control issues, but man, there's a lot of good things, and I don't understand media's desire to ignore that. Like it makes absolutely no sense. Oh, well, the graphics suck and the controls are hard. Okay, but what about that whole 3D spatialness and being in there? Like you can't talk about the cons and then just completely leave off the table the one huge benefit, which is what they all do. It's like saying, I don't like my Ferrari because the seats are small and because it's too low to the ground, so it's hard to slide into. Okay, those are valid, I guess, but at the end of the day, you got to talk about the performance too, right? Like there's that whole other upside to it. And that's what Skyrim PSVR brings. It's a way to play Skyrim like never before. Frankly, it was enough to make me like it. I've never liked Elder Scroll type games, never was big into Fallout, and I'm hoping Fallout 4 in VR, has the same effect. The open world nature bored me to death, and now I'm loving it because I feel like I'm more in that space. It's kind of the same old tropes over and over. Oh, I'm in the space, and I sound repetitive, but that's what separates this. This is what makes it different is that you are in that space. So in terms of the story, like I said, it's deservedly so. I'm glad that it outsold. And, if the PSVR subreddit is any sort of barometer, Skyrim PSVR has been a huge success. Like, I feel like it's maybe sold a ton of units. I don't know if we'll ever get any numbers on it, but the amount of people coming into the PSVR subreddit and saying, ooh, I got a new bundle. Ooh, I picked up Skyrim VR. Like, it's really, really powerful, just like how much it's taken over that subreddit. And that to me suggests that the game is a huge success and that Sony, from a business perspective and a strategy perspective, played their cards right in inking this deal with Bethesda. I'm assuming that there's some exclusivity deal that's keeping Skyrim PSVR off of PC VR, and it's worked very well for PSVR.
Let me just quickly clarify my point, just quickly, because I don't want to say that people should enjoy PSVR Skyrim and not enjoy the Switch Skyrim, or even enjoy one more than the other. I just want to make it clear that the reason I wanted to bring that up originally is the fact that they were talking about Skyrim VR, Skyrim on the Switch for so long, and then dismissing it without seemingly any reason. So I just want to make that clear. It's not that I'm saying PSVR Skyrim is better than the Switch Skyrim. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that they treated it a little bit unfairly in their coverage. That's all.
Yeah, Gary, what it really is like the mass market gaming media. See, all of these people that are on these various shows, Jeff Gerstmann, all these different people, right? They're regular humans, okay? And so when they get a new product, sometimes they'll make a snap judgment about it. And then from that point forward, it's going to take a lot to overcome whatever snap judgment they made about it. And when it comes to like a lot of these IGN guys and like GameSpot and some of these bigger websites, they started off negative. They started off negative with PlayStation VR, that, talking about how bad the tracking is and, do we really need this product? And they really went negative. And in the beginning, there were so many VR haters that seemed like the right way for them to go. And in the comments of these stories and stuff, it was filled with a lot of VR hate. And we remember all of that. And so for a lot of these people, they're really going to have to be dragged kicking and screaming away from that original idea. And, so it's going to take a while for these people to come around. But I think Skyrim hopefully it'll start to make some of these people come around. But it's eventually they're going to come over. So whatever.
Yeah, man, the number of ads I've been getting for Skyrim PSVR has been insane. It's on like Twitter, and then I go on Instagram. It's everywhere. I don't know, just because I like VR, I guess, but that's like the only VR ad I get nowadays. So I think Sony's definitely trying to get a lot of sales on this. It's probably doing well if they're advertising it so much.
Yeah, I hope so. And well, just leading on to that, we can pass it over to Steve and Anthony now, just to give us a few more impressions of Skyrim. You picked it up last week and spoke about it, but what have you thought now you've had a chance to spend some more time with it?
So I am. I kind of come down with the flu this weekend. Some reason every holiday I get the flu. I don't know why, but I. Because of that, I didn't really feel like standing and playing a lot of like motion controller games. So it was perfect opportunity to play more Skyrim. Now I played some with the Move, but I'd say I played probably 2-1 in favor of playing with DualShock 4 at this point. I'm maybe, I don't know, 6-7 hours in. I'm level 10. I've progressed in the story somewhat. I've passed on a lot of side missions, but I've also done a lot of side missions just as well. And all in all, like compared to this time last week, I'm really liking Skyrim quite a bit. I have not waned on my enthusiasm for it. It's what I want to play to most. Now, I played some other games this week because I know we wanted to talk about them on the show and everything, and I enjoyed those games just fine. But my heart, as I was booting those games up, my heart was like, man, I'd just rather just be going and playing Skyrim right now. That's where I want to put my time, and it really suggests that I'm into this world. One of the things that felt really cool about it was taking down a dragon the first time by myself. Like the first dragon you see, it's kind of part of the narrative, and then the second dragon you have some NPC characters that assist you and kind of make the battle easy or easier. But since our show last week, I've upped the difficulty to, I believe, Adept from Novice, which is 2 clicks in the direction harder. I think it's Adept is what that difficulty is called. But being able to take a dragon down with a true threat of death, it's not too easy. Like I have to play it right, and it just felt really cool seeing that dragon crumble and turn to ash as your character absorbs its soul. And the game is pretty damn cool. One of the things that also stands out is the music. So Skyrim's a huge world, and you go from town to town or from place to place, and you can't fast travel. You'll know where you want to go. You'll get a quest or an objective, and you have to go clear across Skyrim to Winterhold or something like that. But you can't fast travel there, so you have to actually walk there or ride a horse there or whatever. And I think that's why I didn't like these types of games in the past as much, because I didn't like just kind of the pointless walking great distances from point A to point B. But in VR, that landscape changes. It serves purpose, and you can enjoy just that walk. And when you're doing it and you're walking down the big hill coming off of a snowy mountain into a wooded forest, and the music will change, and it's got a very cinematic type music theme to it. It feels like you're inside Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones, which by the way, Skyrim seems to have borrowed from Game of Thrones, like all the towns, River Run, Winterhold, like, in Game of Thrones, you got Winterfell and also River Run. Like, there's some heavily borrowing there, and I'm pretty sure Game of Thrones came first. Not the TV show, the books. Anyway, so it's a really crafted world, and, there at times you see the game element, you see the sort of the puppet behind the curtain, or the puppet master behind the curtain, the Oz, if you will. But still, even despite that, like I'm awestruck. Like I really, really like this game.
Awesome. Anthony, have you spent any more time with Skyrim this past week?
Yeah, I have. You know what? I'm in a love-hate relationship with this game, man. Like I still have not reviewed this game. And the reason I haven't reviewed it is because I need to know, like I need to have a feeling on a game. I can't review a game if I haven't made up my mind on the game. And I'm still going through this love-hate thing. And what it is, it's the Move controllers, okay? And I'm sticking with them. I'm really trying to just freaking learn it and just learn to live with it. And it's tough because So here's the thing. When I'm in the game and when I'm just walking down a pathway and there's a new city and the rivers and the streams and like what Steve is talking about, you'll go around a bend and, you know, the music will flare up and the snow is falling on you or the rain or whatever it is. And it almost like you'll get that like tingly sensation down your arms where it's just like, oh my God, this is so incredible. And that will happen. But at the same time, I'm playing this game with the move controllers, and this happens to me repeatedly where it gets screwed up somehow. And so, for example, like I have my hands here and I'm looking at the PSVR camera and my hands are here and I'm standing in front of the PSVR camera and everything is fine. But at a certain point in my play session, my hands in the game get turned like this. Even though I'm standing in front of the camera, I'm standing perfectly in front of the camera. I hold down the option button. I recenter my view. Doesn't matter. The arms are over here like that. I don't know why is this doing this? And sometimes the sword, like if I'm holding a sword in my hand or whatever, the sword is like going that way. And I'm like, why is the sword going that way? And it's all screwy. And I lift my headset up and I'm like, no, the camera's right there. Okay, I'm centered. I hold down the options. Doesn't matter. It's over there. The only way I can get out of this, turn the damn thing off and start over again. So this has really been pissing me off. The other thing that pisses me off is I can play through the game mostly like when I'm actually in the game. But one thing that repeatedly happens to me over and over again, and this is a real problem, is the dead bodies. So you search the dead bodies and you want to take their gold and you want to take this amulet or whatever nice thing that they have. But then at the same time, they have a big ass battle axe that weighs like 35 pounds. And so what I found myself doing a lot, and this was my fault, is I was hitting the triangle button, which is take all. And it's just because it's easy. Dealing with the move controllers, it really is difficult. And so I was just hitting the triangle, take all. Well, it didn't take too long before I'm over encumbered and the weight. And then so you take all and you're like, damn it, this guy had a battle axe. Now I'm over encumbered. And now I just need to drop the battle axe. Well, the problem is with the move controllers, I need somebody to come over to my house and walk me through it because I don't know what I'm doing wrong. But when it comes to like drop the battle axe, it's like trying to solve like an algebra puzzle or something. I just can't seem to get it to work I'm turning my move controllers this way. Okay, I'm turning my move controllers around to try to get through the menus. And sometimes it works great. And I'm like, yeah, okay, now it's working. And then it doesn't. And so what I've had to do is I actually have to have my DualShock 4 right by me. Okay. And so whenever I get into this situation where I'm about to loot a body, I now have to put my move controllers down, get my wrist straps off of my move controllers, put those down, pick up the DualShock 4. Okay, let me grab this guy's gold. Let me grab his amulet. Okay, no, I don't want the battle axe. So now I'm not over encumbered. Okay, now I can put this down. Now I can get my move controllers back and I can actually play Skyrim again. And then I'm playing it for like 10 minutes. It's great. Oh, but now my arms are over here and I got to turn it off. So that's been my experience with Skyrim. So I'm not super in love with it, but when I'm actually in the game and nothing else is bothering the experience, it's incredible. It really is. But I've had so many times where the experience just gets janked out of control and it's just driving me batty. And I'm at the point now where I'm almost just going to give up and go to the DualShock, but I don't want to. I want the immersion. I want to be in there. So I don't know.
But see, it's not immersion if you're fighting a system. Yeah, you have control over your hands, but that's not immersion if you're constantly fighting that and having to think. Like, I think I started to say this on our show last week, and it's like, okay, I want to drop this axe. And you have to like think about it. Like, how do I drop this axe? Like that immediately takes me out of the immersion, which, by the way, I think you just hit square with the item highlighted in the menu. I think you just hit square to drop. And I know that's how you do it on the DualShock. I'm assuming it's the same way on the move controller. But anyways, like in combat when I'm using the moves and I'm set up as a mage, so I'll have like flames and sparks in my two hands. And as a mage, I need to be able to move and keep distance between me and the enemy. And And I can't do that with the moves. Like if I'm shooting flames, out of my hands like this, I can't press the move button and point it behind me in order to backpedal while I'm shooting my magic at the enemy. So completely, as a mage, it completely breaks down. And if I had a shield, I can pull up the quick menu, I can get out my shield and then like kind of block with my shield while I'm shooting magic with the offhand or with the other hand. But it's just that constant like micromanaging. I'm micromanaging to a controller that isn't sufficient for the job. And ultimately, that is what breaks the immersion for me. No amount of good motion control is going to overcome that mental exercise of you coming out of that world mentally and figuring out what sort of acrobatic thumb presses and maneuvers that you have to do that are completely unnatural, by the way, and in order to stay with motion controls. With the DualShock, you don't have control, individual control over your hands, but I'm immersed because I don't have to think about the controls. Like instantly, it's like driving a car or something. I instantly do what my reflexes are, and I think that keeps me immersed, and that's one of the reasons why I can kind of accept a gamepad in a game.
Can I ask you one more question though? So on the combat, see, the thing is, when I'm playing Vanishing Realms or Carnage Chronicles, the Mage's Tale doesn't really have swords, so probably not that. But when I'm playing like Carnage Chronicles or Vanishing Realms and you're fighting somebody with a sword, right? And you have a sword. Okay, so they're swinging their sword, and usually if you take your sword and you turn it to the side, you can time it and block their impact, right? I've never been able to do this in Skyrim VR. Now, is this just not possible, or am I doing something wrong? I don't know, because I've never been able to actually block their shot with my sword. It's almost like they have no physical, there's no connection there. You're playing as a mage, so maybe you've never even tried it.
I have done it with a DualShock. I can't say that I've ever done it with a Move controller, but I mean, some of that's going to come back to the port. Like so when you swing the sword, it's almost like a turn-based RPG in the sense that you're just swinging the sword. There can be like a lot of distance between you. Like you don't have to physically actually connect with the thing you're hitting. It's got like a really wide hitbox or something like that allows it to register a hit. And I think the same thing kind of works on you. And on a flat screen, it probably was fine. That's how they made the game work. In VR, it's exposed a little bit. But I do know that there is, I think it's called parrying is that word for when like you block an attack with an attack. And I know it works as it happens to me a lot when using the DualShock, but I don't know off the top of my head if it's happened while using a move.
Yeah, what you're talking about there as far as that hitbox, I talked about this last time as well, where I have a sword, it's sticking out 3 feet, but the enemy is like 7 feet away and I'm slashing the enemy. And why aren't more people talking about this? I would think this would be like people should say, the melee combat is kind of jank. Like we need to get to a time eventually. Somebody needs to figure out melee, and they need to figure out from a standpoint of like swords hitting swords and actually hitting the body. Everybody wants like this lightsaber game, right? At some point where you can play with lightsabers. But until we come up with the idea of how things connect to each other, and then there's like some type of force feedback to pull your arm back, and like how you hit things, and like the shield blocking, like this game wasn't designed for VR from the ground up. But Bethesda, next time, if they try to make a special VR Skyrim that is designed, are they gonna be able to figure out the sword play? Because until we figure that out, like even in Carnage Chronicles and Vanishing Realms and stuff, it's kind of, it's not like you don't feel like you're getting better as a swordsman and you're learning where to slash them and stuff like that. And we eventually need to get there if this stuff is going to be compelling for more than just enjoying the beautiful scenery and the streams and the snow is coming down and, oh, there's a bear over there and that looks really cool.
Well, that's the age-old question with motion controls. Like, that's these concepts of gloves and all sorts of these other advanced controllers. You can't, like, I can pick up this Coke can and I feel it in my hand, But in VR, I don't feel it the same way. I can't crush it. And if I do crush it, squeeze the trigger to crush can. You're not actually crushing the can, and you don't get that feedback, that tactile response. Even if the controller rumbles or something, you don't get that feedback. And I don't think there's a solution for that besides some super elaborate hardware mechanism that costs a lot of money and that adds another layer to the VR hurdle of, oh, now I gotta, instead of just putting this headset on and donning with that, I gotta slide into some sort of robotic apparatus that'll restrict my hands, like when I'm swinging a sword and I get blocked, something like actually physically holds my arm back from going further. Like, Jesus, like that would be super cool. Like, I ain't gonna lie there, it'd be awesome, but it's I don't know how we get there. Like,
that's what Palmer Lucky's working on. We're gonna wire right into our brains, man. We're gonna bypass all the other bullshit and wire right into our brains.
Well, that works then.
It's sort of disappointing to hear, as somebody who hasn't played Skyrim yet, a little bit disappointing that they've not even got some kind of way of approximating this in a similar way to like Vanishing Realms or Carnage Chronicles. I expected Skyrim, and I didn't really put a lot of thought into it when I was expecting this, but I expected it to work in a similar way to Vanishing Realms in terms of the sword combat, but obviously it doesn't. And you're right, Anthony, we haven't heard a great deal of reports about this. We have heard people say the combat is still janky the way it always has been in Skyrim, but we haven't heard any specifics in terms of how it doesn't work if you're unable to block it in the way that you're describing there. That's a little bit disappointing. But when you do think about it, they've had to adapt this game to make some of those changes might be a little bit too much to ask, even if they've had a long time to develop it.
I've been playing bow and arrow lately, and I like that better. I like, and it's the motion controls of going like this and doing it. And I think that, I don't know, I disagree with Steve. I feel like that, like doing that and like moving around, looking around and letting your arrow go. I feel like that, like you were saying, you have the flu and stuff. You're sitting down playing Skyrim. That is a cardinal sin, man.
No, it's again, I mean, it's the same argument, right? Like, at the end of the day, you're fighting mechanics. I'm not. I'm playing the game, and I'm doing nothing but playing the game.
But you could stand up with your DualShock. You could stand up.
I mean, I'm not using my hands. Like, so when you're playing with a gamepad, the hands are tethered to your view. So if I turn my head, it just, they're locked in place, swing sword like that. I'm making gestures for those listening on the audio podcast. It's if you focus on that, it'll be, I guess, immersion breaking if you focus on that. Just like when I focus on the move version, how I have to constantly finagle with the controls and how I can't move backwards while I'm shooting my lightning bolts out of my hands. Like, range attacks work well. Bow and arrow works just fine with the move controllers. Shooting my spells work just fine with the move controllers. Works perfectly until you want to move while doing that. And then
the moving backwards thing, that's interesting that you brought that up, because do you remember, Steve, when we got into our argument, I don't know, many months ago, we're talking about how, like, I was making this argument that no, developers can figure out these move controllers. Like, and my suggestion was triangle button, the little triangle button is move forward. Circle button, move backwards. So you just aim the controller and it would require, you would have to sacrifice two buttons. What they've done with like the Solus project and with Skyrim and with a lot of these games on PSVR is they're just sacrificing the big move button and they're not giving you the ability to easily go backwards. And that is a problem in these kinds of games.
Well, in Skyrim, you need those buttons to do other things. You got to pull up your quick menu in order to switch weapons or drink a health potion or whatever. But also, I'm pretty sure those buttons aren't pressure sensitive. So they're just like old school Nintendo NES controllers where it's on, off, on, off. So whereas with an analog, you get that, you get the analog input so that you can move at different velocities or whatever. So it's not just, completely at a standstill or moving backwards at full speed. There's no precision to that. So I'm sure that comes into play. But
I didn't know the move button was analog. It is?
No, it's not analog. It's discrete,
okay.
just on off. It's not pressure sensitive. Like I believe on a DualShock 4, like I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on this, but I think most advanced gamepads that have been out since maybe 360 days, the face buttons are pressure sensitive. So if you press the button harder, it's almost like an analog controller. It's not just press the button or not. Maybe I'm off base, but
I didn't know that.
But whereas on the Move, it's just off on. There is no pressure sensitivity to it, which makes it less than ideal for anything like, say, driving a car. You know, like the accelerator of a gas pedal. Like I don't think you'd want to move that way.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, we can carry on with some games talk now. We've got a fair few smaller games this week that have been released, games and experiences really that we can talk about. Chris, I'll go over to you first. Is there anything in particular you want to discuss this week?
Sure. Do you want me to talk about Speedball Arena?
Yeah, we can go into that one first. Yeah.
Okay, so this is kind of like first I thought it was like a Tron like light bike type experience, but it turns out to just be basically Rocket League in VR, where you can shoot your grappling hook to get the ball, and then you have to score it in the other person's goal. And it's really interesting how you move. So you have one hand is the controller, kind of like how you move. So you move it left and right to turn your like little bike thing, and then you have the trigger on this hand, and the other hand's the one that gets the ball and throws it and stuff like that. I don't know. It seemed really cool at first. I was kind of enjoying it, and then I just got so motion sick. Like, this game is probably one of the worst offenders of breaking every single rule like ever invented of having a game that makes you motion sick. So that sucked. That sucked about it. But in terms of the gameplay, I think if I got in a multiplayer game, I'd really like it. I just played the single player a few times. The bots aren't the best really, but yeah, no, it's fun. Lagged. I don't know. Everything's lagging for me lately. I don't know if my graphics card sucks or something, but like I'm getting 45 FPS on basically everything I play on the Vive now. It's weird, but yeah. So yeah, I know you also tried that, Gary. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you suffer from motion sickness at all, then this really isn't the game for you. But it's sort of unashamedly Rocket League inspired. I mean, just down to the way the arena looks, the ball looks. Even like in Rocket League, you go over these little power-up sections where you can get boost. This game even has those as well. So, it's wearing its influences on its sleeve. And yeah, the motion sickness aspect is going to be a problem for a lot of people. I played a game and I was okay, but I don't know if I could really, I didn't have any inclination to carry on after that. And I'm not sure if I had done, whether I would have been affected by the motion sickness, because it really is extreme in places. You want to try and get to the ball as fast as you can, and you're making these really, really rapid turns. But it's motion controller based. I actually played this standing up. Chris, did you play this standing up, or were you?
I did, and I feel like that was a mistake, but I feel like I should have been sitting down. I didn't know when I watched it,
Exactly. Yeah, I was exactly the same. Halfway through the match, I was thinking maybe I should have started this sitting down. It might be a better experience. But actually, the game itself, even though it's heavily influenced by Rocket League, and I'm a big fan of Rocket League. I think it's a great game, and it's got all the hallmarks of a VR version of that game to be just as good. It's just got these VR problems about it, the motion sickness. So just very quickly to describe the game, you're in some kind of pod that you can control, and it is motion controllers, and in one hand you control the forward and backward movement of the pod that you move around in, and then in the other hand you have like a grappling hook kind of attachment, like in something like Windlands, where you can sort of grab the ball and then you charge up your shot and you just aim it towards the goal. Very simple. The concept of the game is very simple. Now, Speedball Arena, you see, there was a game in the past, a long time ago, that I used to play on my Amiga, and I think it was a Sega Mega Drive game as well, called Speedball and Speedball 2. Which I loved, and I sort of was under the impression this was sort of a VR version of that game. It's really not. It's not. It's nothing to do with that, as far as I know. But it can stand up on its own. You've got the motion sickness problem about the game, but barring that, I really don't think it's a terrible game or anything like that. I actually think it's got a lot about it that could be fun if you can get over the locomotion problems that will affect probably too many people for it to be a success, really, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, it's weird because it's like designed for VR, but that's like the biggest issue with it is the locomotion. So you'd think they'd try to work on it a little more. Like maybe just adding a better cockpit or something so I feel more grounded could help. I don't know. Like they could maybe add some comfort options that would help it a lot. Like when you go fast, it puts blinders in or something. I think that might help. But
yeah, that's a good idea.
It's a good foundation, though.
Yeah, it really is. And I didn't delve into the options too much on this. So I don't know if there are any sort of comfort options in there that you can adjust. I steer away from comfort options generally in games because I like the full immersive atmosphere, and I don't really suffer from motion sickness a great deal in VR, so I generally don't have to look at that. But with this particular game, it's definitely probably something they should look into adding if they haven't already.
I haven't played the game. Why is it that you guys think that it induces motion sickness? Like, it's not just smooth, because there's lots of games that move around quickly that have a smooth locomotion, especially if you're in a vehicle of some sort.
Yeah, well, the problem for me is like it also has this jump thing too, where you can go like, phew, and then it's just the fact that the turning is so fast. Like smooth locomotion itself is fine, like going forward and backward, I'm cool with, or and turning my actual body. But in this, you can just go like 360 in like a second. You can just do this, and like that's the worst thing is when you use shifting.
It's a smooth turning, really, that's the problem.
Yeah, that's really the problem.
The turning, especially in this, absolutely, because you're just making such fast turns because you have to. The game sort of makes you have to do that in order to have any chance of getting hold of the ball, really. So you have to do these really, really fast turns. So it's going to be a problem for some people. I don't know really a way around it. I don't know what they could do. As you say, Chris, maybe there's some comfort options that they could put in, maybe build up the cockpit, as you suggested, and that would help. I don't know.
So a game I played a lot, before the community fell apart was Rigs, and you jump, and I had the turn dialed up really fast and it had smooth turning. But what that game did that this doesn't, by the looks of it, that I've seen in the trailer, is that in Rigs it rendered that whole cockpit, you were looking through a windshield, and then on that windshield was like some heads up display thing. So I guess it grounded you better as being inside of a vehicle. But I found in that game I could turn fast. It didn't affect me at all. But then playing something like Alien Isolation, turning could make me feel sick, or Narcosis. I remember kind of getting sick playing that, and it turned much slower. But I think without that grounding, that frame of reference, it's what did it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, Anthony, I'll go over to you. Is there anything in particular you want to discuss this week other than Skyrim that you've already mentioned?
Well, we could get into the Exorcist Legion VR if you guys want to get into that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, so the Exorcist Legion VR, this is an interesting deal because basically we're talking about episodic content delivery here. And so on November 22nd, it came out, and there's 2 chapters that are available. There's First Rites and there's Idle Hands. And First Rites, I believe you can grab this for $4. The normal price is going to be $5, but I think it's like a launch special or whatever. You can grab it for $4. And then Idle Hands, I believe, is $5. Now, we were provided a key from Wolf and Wood Interactive. So full disclosure there, we were provided a key for First Rites. And I tried this out. And the first time that I played it, I wasn't playing it right because I was kind of like going through the experience too fast, and like I really didn't enjoy it. And I thought, this isn't that good. And I was like, man, this is disappointing because this just isn't that good. The second time I tried it, because I didn't finish it all the way, I only did it a little bit. The second time I got in there, I played it the way you're supposed to play it, which is more slow and deliberate. And when you first start, we got to be careful with spoilers on this because it's only 20 to 25 minutes. So we can't really go into spoilers too much. But when you first get in there, you're a homicide detective and you're figuring out what happened at this church. And there are evidence markers that are placed around, and it has like number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. And so as the homicide detective, you're supposed to go to number 1, check that scene out first. Then you go to number 2, you check that scene out. And what I realized the second time that I tried going through this is that you really want to follow the line, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you want to take your time. And one of the irritating things I thought about this experience was you do have free locomotion if you want to turn that on, but the walking speed is really slow. Now, you can go into the options and you can change the walking speed, but I had it set on the fastest speed and it's still quite slow. But I think it might be slow deliberately to kind of let you know, look, this isn't something where you're going to zoom around and you're zooming through everything. This experience is more like you're in a number of different rooms and you're supposed to kind of take your time and allow the experience to develop and not like try to rush. Like, there's that certain type of gamer where they just go through everything. They never do a side quest. It's just bam, bam, bam. They just want to go to the end. I don't think those gamers are going to enjoy this very much. This is the type of thing you got to savor it. And then before I kick it off to somebody else, I'll just say when it comes to horror, I'm not the type, I don't like the devil satanic stuff. For some reason that gives me the willies, I don't know what it is about that, where like it could be monsters or ghosts or something like more supernatural. But when it gets into like devils and satanic stuff, I don't know if it hits a little too home for me because I was raised Catholic. And so like I learned a lot of this stuff growing up, and it's like maybe it's hitting a little too close to home. But there were certain moments in this where I was seriously scared. And I don't really get scared in VR a lot unless there's like a bug creature that will scare me. But this one, man, there were certain moments, I can't spoil it, but man, scared the living crap out of me for brief periods of time. But kick it over to somebody else.
Yeah, well, I can talk very quickly about this. I sort of agree with what you were saying, Anthony. I think the main point that I want to sort of reinforce that you mentioned there is the fact you need to take your time with this game and just enjoy. I mean, enjoy is probably the wrong word to use because it is a scary game. And there's parts in this where I found myself really not wanting to turn my head at all because you knew that when you turned your head, something was going to happen. And it's using these cues. I won't go into spoilers about this, but I come to this game as a fan of their previous game, Wolf and Wood's previous game, A Chair in a Room. And you can certainly see the similarities between those two games, but for me, it feels like they've taken a step up. Just the overall polish of it feels a little bit higher than A Chair in a Room, at least at the time I played that game. So yeah, really, really enjoyed it for the most part. I was scared. It's a scary game, especially towards the end, and it's understated. I mean, I won't go into spoilers, but like A Chair in a Room, that it's understated for the most part. That the horror is very sort of ambient, atmosphere-focused horror. You can go around and read all these parts to get some kind of a backstory on what's going on in this sort of two-room scene, really. But you can get a background on the story you just reading things that are lying around. But there are sections on this which are not quite as understated as things in A Chair in a Room. It feels more like I don't know. See, A Chair in a Room, and I mentioned this before. It is understated and it's subtle. It's subtle horror, and there's jump scares in it, and there's jump scares in this, and it's very similar in that way. But this is sort of I don't think it shares similarities. For A Chair in the Room all the way through. That's what I'll say. I'll leave it at that. Yeah, I know you two guys. Steve, what did you think of this?
Sorry, I was on mute. I think I like it. Is what I think. It really felt like A Chair in the Room. I could tell they're using sort of the same game engine and some of the similar textures and the way they create the world. It had some of that same feeling to it, but at the same time, it also felt a little nicer. It felt like like they've had another year or so to learn how to do things a bit better. It's a very short experience, as you guys said. Can't really talk about spoiling it because it's very easy to do. There's not much to say in terms of specifics. Other than the ending, I really like the way that chapter ends. I love the just that overall feeling. Like, you know it's coming. You know that something is going to scare you. You know there's kind of sort of the episode cliffhanger, so to speak, and you know it's coming, and you sit there and take it. Like it's like intentional, like, self-punishment or something. Like, you like, why am I putting myself through this, for entertainment purposes? But it has such a cool takeaway that when you go through something like that, the tension, like, it feels really tense. You tense up. Never really scared in the sense that I never lose my grounding completely, that where I personally don't feel like I'm at harm. But despite that, I still react from being in the space. Like, when something falls over, like, it still causes that lizard brain fight or flight response. And I think it all just works really well in a game like that, and these guys know what they're doing. From a critical standpoint, though, in the one area of concern, if episode 1 is sort of the appetizer, the teaser, get everybody hooked for $4 or whatever it is, $4 or $5, I'm concerned that at only 5 episodes, if they're all only 20, 25, maybe 30 minutes, then the total asking price and the total runtime may not, from a value proposition, may not compete with a chair in the room. I don't recall exactly how long I played a chair in the room, but looking back on it, I feel like I still spent at least 3.5, 4 hours in that game, and some of it I was trying to figure out how to just get out of each room, because it was sort of an escape the room experience in a way. I'm concerned that it may be too short even after you've bought all 5 episodes, but we'll have to see. Maybe the first one's just intentionally a bit shorter than the others.
Yeah, Chris, what did you think of this?
There's so many horror games coming out lately. It's crazy. It's overwhelming. I don't know. I get scared easily, especially in VR. I don't know what it is. I mean, obviously it's immersive and stuff, but like, I don't even like playing horror games on the monitor. So, I mean, this is really well done. Like, you've all pretty much said everything I could say about it. Like, the atmosphere is really great. The sound design is really great. Has that really spooky vibe to it. Every time something happens, I look away, and then I'm just like creeping over back. I'm just like, oh, so, no, it's definitely fun. I didn't actually finish it yet, but I don't know. I'm trying to. It's even broad daylight now, and I still couldn't. I was like, nope. So I don't know. I don't know what I need next to me to finish this. Like, I need something. I need to give myself a reward or something, but I need to finish a horror game,
Yeah,
but yeah, it's great.
Just be aware, it is short, so push through it. I know what you mean. Sometimes, in all honesty, I think it helps just to push through it in one sitting. Just get yourself through it and sort it out. And like Anthony was saying originally, also, I think it's worth emphasizing the fact that you need to take your time and just absorb some of the little things that are going on in this game. One thing I want to mention finally on this is the interaction. I played Paranormal Activity, and I thought that was a pretty good horror game as well. I like that. But there's no interaction in the environment. In this game, and in things like a chair in a room, you can pick up pretty much anything you can see and examine it. And I think that's worth mentioning, because there's some games that don't really take that route, and it really helps with immersion. And maybe you don't need helping with immersion in something like The Exorcist, because you're already immersed in that world, as terrible as it is. Okay, well, I'll go on to a game next. Well, this isn't a game, actually. I'll talk about Dispatch. I think a couple of us have played this. This is it's sort of again, it's like an episodic thing that is coming out. It's a narrative-based story, episodic kind of experience that is being released through Oculus Home. And the first episode, I think it only lasts probably, what do you reckon, maybe 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes, something like that. It's not very long at all, but it's presented to you in quite an interesting way. So again, we won't go into spoilers on this, because it's only just come out a couple of days ago, but the premise behind it is that you hear sort of voices that are of like a 911 caller, like who is contacting the police, and in order to get some kind of help, and the story progresses on from there. But while you're hearing this audio, you're also being presented with images which I guess are supposed to symbolize the images of this caller, the receiver of the caller, I should say, of this 911 call that is trying to get some kind of idea of what's going on to this person that's in danger. So it's presented in a way where you've got sort of these lines, sort of very basic line kind of graphics, which are showing a scene, but they're not showing the scene in its entirety. And as the caller gives you more information, you get more sort of visual information as well. So they'll say, for example, at the beginning of this call, they'll say, "I'm in a forest." So then these trees start to appear, and you start to get the experience in that way. And it's sort of very rudimentary in some ways because the graphics are basic, but they're perfect for the kind of experience that this is going for. And very short, interesting. There's a few chapters. You can the first one is free, I believe, and then you can purchase another 3 or 4 chapters after that, and it tells a cohesive story. So the first one ends on sort of a bit of a cliffhanger, I suppose, and then you can go on and purchase a few others beyond there. Steve, I think you played this as well, did you?
Yeah, I tried it this morning actually, and I thought it was pretty cool. Like immediately, some of my first thoughts are it compared a lot to Stifled. Stifled, that one, and it you know, the wireframe and things being very audio cued. It was, you know, it's a sort of a visual treat. It's a very unique way of showing something in an experience like this. You want to focus a lot on the audio because it's called dispatch, because you're hearing the call to a dispatch operator for the police, and it's responding in the situation. So you don't want to have it, I guess, overloaded with visual acuity that detracts from listening to the call and taking in those details. So I'm assuming that's kind of why the developers went in that direction. So yeah, it like Gary mentioned, it's 5 minutes. It's pretty short, but it's a cool 5 minutes. And then at the end, once you complete it, you can click the thing that says buy more episodes. And I didn't do it from the desktop. I did it from the like in the game, and it popped up and it said $2.99, and it wasn't clear to me if the $2.99 was like I get all the episodes for $2.99 or $2.99 per episode. Did anybody like follow through with that or look into that any?
I didn't know. No, I'm not too sure about the pricing of this overall. No. Well, actually, let me just say as well, the 2 words I was struggling for there are dispatcher and wireframe. They're the 2 exceptional words to use in describing this. But yeah, Anthony, you played this as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I played this, and you know what? I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this is one of the best non-game experiences I've had in several months. Like, I put this ahead of Coco. I put this ahead of Memory Lab, even though it's short. Now, you guys are saying it's 5 minutes. I personally think it's closer to about 10 minutes, but I mean, that's neither here nor there. But this, you're a dispatcher. Okay, so you're like this police officer. There's a little bit of a story that goes along with this, and it kind of becomes obvious that you were like some type of police officer. Maybe something happened, and now you've been assigned to be a 911 dispatcher, and you don't really like it. You hate your job. There's this one part where this guy is like, he's like typing a letter to his superior officer, but he's also talking to himself at the same time. And he's like, man, son of a bitch, you know, and he's like saying this stuff, but in his letter, he's not quite being quite as harsh in his letter. And so there's a little bit of backstory there, which is cool. But the thing that truly impressed me about this experience is we're always talking about like higher resolution headsets, and like, I can't wait until, you know, we get to these higher resolution headsets. Well, I don't remember who actually designed this dispatch, who actually did this production, but whoever did, it's a masterful job from the standpoint of the way they do the graphics, the way it's dark, and it has this wireframe look. I don't know that on a tremendously higher resolution headset it's going to look any different. I think this takes advantage of, or maybe it like like hides the limitations of these VR headsets, and the way that they design this, it looks crystal clear. I mean, you look like you're seeing holograms, and it looks great. Just a fantastic visual job. And like Steve mentioned, Stifled. If Stifled looked like this throughout the entire experience, like if the creatures that were moving around, if they look like this, it would have been way better, in my opinion. Stifled, like this looks way better than Stifled. And I was impressed. I was incredibly impressed with this. I was really tempted to do that $2.99, and I probably will. It would be interesting to know, do you have to pay $3 for every single episode? Because then it's starting to get kind of expensive after a while. But I'm tempted, man, because this first taste, I was like, damn, these fools really did a nice job here. Everybody needs to try this, period.
Yeah, I just want to point out I tried it and it doesn't work with Revive as of yet, so gotta have a Rift for this one for some reason. But hopefully Revive will get updated soon. But I only brought my Vive home. I was really excited to try it, but I couldn't. So I'll do that when I get back to my apartment.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll get Revive working with this. Okay, Steve, I'll go over to you next. What did you want to talk about?
Well, I'll talk about Final Fantasy 15 Monsters of the Deep, or Monsters of Deep. It's a PlayStation VR exclusive developed by Square Enix, so it's their first real, I'd say, foray into VR from a from a property that's really sort of a big deal for them, being Final Fantasy. Now, I'm a huge Final Fantasy fan, have played the games for as long as I can remember, from a point early enough to like really read in some of the first Final Fantasy on Nintendo. And Final Fantasy 15 was the last flat pancake game that I played. And I did it around this time last year when the game came out. So Monsters of the Deep was something that interested me because it's in that universe and because it's Square, and you're probably paying a Square tax. This game's $30. And I mentioned last week, I was talking about, I believe it was Exorcist, and I said, they announced the release date a little late because some gamers like to plan, and I myself, I planned for this game. We did not get a key from Square Enix. We're not in their distribution chain. We're not IGN. We're not the people who trash VR on a regular. We're actually fans of it, so why give us a key? But that being said, I planned for it, and I knew I was going to buy the game, and I knew I was probably in a way overpaying for something in terms of value, but it really impressed me. And what we know of the game is that it's a fishing game, which is bizarre. Why have a Final Fantasy fishing game? Well, in every Final Fantasy game, there's a mechanic that is sort of underlying. Like in Final Fantasy's most popular game, Final Fantasy VII, probably, there's this Blitzball game. And it's sort of just this thing. It's sort of like a side game, but it parlays into the story a little bit. And in Final Fantasy 15, the main character, Noctis, he fishes. It's his specialty, in that you gather resources and stuff via fishing. And so they kind of leveraged on that with Monsters of the Deep. And it takes place in that universe. You create your character. You're able to choose your head. Not all that different from, say, Skyrim. But quickly you get kind of through that. It has a bit of a narrative to it. For Final Fantasy 15 fans, you do see Cindy in VR, and I won't expand on what that means. If you know who she is, you'll know why that matters in VR. But at the core, once you've gone through all that and you kind of gotten the narrative, you go to a spot and you're fishing, and the fishing works like you would expect. It's you use the move controller, you cast your reel. Unlike the fishing game that recently came out for PlayStation VR, Fishing Masters, you actually use your offhand and do the reeling motion to once you've hooked a fish and you bring it in. What a lot of people may not know about the game, and it sort of caught me by surprise, was that once you've gone to a certain area and once you've caught enough fish, you're filling up this meter that basically will let you drag out and capture the major beast, the major fish that you were going after. And once you do that, it becomes a shooting gallery. Like, you get a crossbow and you start shooting. Like, that wasn't something that I really was like aware of. Like, I think they kind of force fed it in there to kind of average out the gameplay a little bit, where it's not just fishing. But all in all, it's pretty deep. There's different rods you can buy. There's different reels. And like I mentioned, there's a narrative to it. Graphically, it looks really good. And it does a lot of bouncing between a VR environment and the and sort of the PlayStation VR cinematic view. It moves between those a lot. But you ultimately you get into a lot of these Final Fantasy 15 environments in VR, and I'm playing on a PlayStation 4 Pro, and it's one of the better looking games, which isn't surprising because it's one of those things that Square Enix is known for. They like to make visually pleasing games, and for their first entrance into VR, and I know they had the Kairei Sei Million Author VR game that came out a month or so ago, for their first, what I think their first real entry into VR from them in this game. I think it looks great, and the only critique, and it goes back to value, is that I think at $30 it might be on the high side for 3 to 4 hours of gameplay. But if you're a huge Final Fantasy fan, I don't know if there's a big overlap between Final Fantasy fans and VR fans, then this game is something that I would recommend.
Yeah, and I'm just actually reassured that it's not anything to do with that. Do you remember E3? Might have been 2016 E3, where they had a trailer for a Final Fantasy VR experience, and it just looked really, really bad. So I'm just sort of pleased it's not that.
Yeah, they abandoned that, and that actually kind of pisses me off a little bit because I bought the game, and you were supposed to get a VR experience by buying Final Fantasy 15. And yes, that thing they showed at E3 2016, it was no good and everyone panned it, but I think they should have given me Monsters of the Deep for free or for a discount or something, kind of, because that's one of the reasons I bought Final Fantasy 15. I mean, I wanted to play that game, so I'm not going to make an excuse there, but also I knew, hey, I'm going to get this VR experience eventually, and that was sort of a nice little bonus. And then for them to just drop it while also coming out with this other game that cost $30 is kind of a crappy thing, but still, it is what it is, and I guess if you're a fan of something, you'll take it on the chin.
Yeah. Okay. Anthony, shall I go over to you for the next one? I tell you what, shall we talk about, is it Reboant? I think we've all briefly tried this. Anyway, Anthony, why don't you take us away on this?
Yeah, so Reboant, Rise of the New Horde, I'll just tell you what happened, because I tried to play it, didn't get into the game. But what happened was, we've heard about this Reboant, Rise of the New Horde. Back in the summer, I believe it was China Joy conference in China. HTC was there, although this was a lot of PlayStation VR games were being shown off, Chinese developed PlayStation VR games, but HTC was there, and they were showing this game Reboant, Rise of the New Horde behind closed doors, and they were bragging to people about how AAA this is, like this is the first real AAA game, blah, 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 blah. And so we heard about it back then. Then we didn't hear anything about it for the longest time. Then just recently they had a Steam page, and on the Steam page it says coming out October 2017. Of course, this Steam page appeared in November. It was like November 2nd or something, and it said coming October 2017. Then they change it to November 2017. Then we find out, oh, Reboant, it's available, but it's not the game, it's a demo. And it's a 99-cent demo. So that's kind of unusual that you would have to pay for a demo, but that's the way it worked with this. And so we went ahead and picked it up. I tried to get in this a couple of different times, but it crashed on me both times. But I'm using an Oculus Rift, and one of the things that I heard from a number of people that tried this with an Oculus Rift is that even if you were able to get into it, you would be like stuck in the floor or something, and it really didn't work. So I tried to get into it, but didn't happen. But if either of you guys actually got into it and saw anything.
Yeah, well, I tried it originally on the Rift, and that's when I didn't know that it didn't work with the Rift. So yeah, I did have that problem where when you first start the game, you find yourself you have to look at an area, and you're basically in the floor, so you can't get out of the floor, and there's no way to make it work with the Rift, as far as I know. A couple of times I went in, I tried it, I persevered quite a long time actually with the Rift, because it sort of crashed as well a couple of times. But when eventually I decided to try the Vive, and having read some stuff on Reddit that it only really works with the Vive, I did get this thing to work. The graphics are very, very good, and the problem is, as a result of that, it's the performance. There's a big problem with the performance in this game. Now, it feels like, because I've got a 1080 Ti, I'm actually super sampling Steam VR anyway to 2.0. Now, this feels like it's actually adding to the super sampling of that. Everything looks incredibly clear and it looks fantastic, but there is a performance hit on that. So I turned down the super sampling in Steam VR in order to get this run, and it did help. There was still performance problems with it, even when it was running. But yeah, the graphics, I mean, exceptionally good. I've got to say, the graphics are exceptionally good for this. Unfortunately, I didn't get very far with it because it crashed at least twice, and that's when I was eventually trying it on the Vive. So it crashed before when I was trying it on the Rift a couple of times as well, and then I eventually went through and tried it on the Vive, and I got to this. You find yourself in like a pod, some kind of a pod initially in this game, and it went through that section fine. But as soon as I went to start the mission, it crashed, and it crashed twice. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know if other people have had this problem. I know we've spoken before the show. I know we've all experienced a few problems with it, but we didn't really go into depth about it. But I'll pass it over. Chris, did you try this? Are
you saying I got the furthest in this game?
Maybe you did,
for once, because I actually got somewhere from the pod. Yeah, God, the performance is bad, and it kept crashing. And like, the worst thing is, you need a really big play space. You need like at least basically 3 meters by like 1.5 or something, or by 2. So a lot of the stuff was out of reach. I had to keep restarting my computer for some reason because it wouldn't close all the way. And I finally got to like press the start mission button after so long. So that was good. From what I did see, the voice acting wasn't the best, at least from the initial part. And then I finally got in the world. It's kind of this like volcano-y world, and looks like there's a lot of motion captured people, and like they looked really good. But I was getting 1 frame a second, definitely, like maybe 2. But oh my God, performance is terrible. And I have a 980. I don't even have a 970 or anything like that. So like you'd think you'd be able to run decent, but man, I couldn't. I got the gun out of my the holster or whatever. He's like, "You got a gun?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then it crashed. So I don't know. I feel like this was a wasted purchase until they fix the performance or something.
Yeah, there's something, but there's definitely problems with it. Steve, what did you think?
I don't think anything really, because I couldn't get out of the floor. When I went to give it a go, it was before we were coming in to record the show. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll play this. I know it's a demo. It's relatively short. By the time I realized that it would not work in the Rift, and I just happened to have my Rift out at that time, I didn't feel like putting it away and going and getting the Vive and setting it all up just to play this. And I was frustrated with the crashes. Like, one thing that it doesn't work and I was stuck in the floor. It was the other thing that it crashed 2 or 3 times before I got to the point that I was stuck in the floor. So at that point they lost me, and I was like, I shouldn't have to give my time in this way for something. It's clearly not my setup. Fine if it's not compatible with the Rift, but it sounds like you guys that tried it on the Vive didn't really have much better results. Like, Chris got the furthest and the frame rate sucks. So I'm not sure why they're releasing a demo at a cost if they don't have it really working. This kind of seems like it's ripe for a refund, in my opinion. Now, the good news, it's only $1, so maybe a lot of people won't go through the hassle of refunding something that's only $1. But even then, it's kind of crap, in my opinion. So hopefully it doesn't bode for what the full game will become. But as of right now, the attention to detail seems to be a bit off.
Yeah. I really persevered with this as well. That's the frustrating thing. I thought, I'm going to stick with it. I'm really going to try and get this working, just so I can talk about it on the show and just experience these great graphics that they gave me a taste of. Even though performance was awful, I wanted to persevere with it. So I wasn't rewarded with that at all. It just crashed again and again, and it was very, very frustrating. Okay, we can move on to the next game that we received a key for this week, which is Shooty Fruity. I think we've all played this, so let's go over to Anthony first. What did you think of Shooty Fruity?
Yeah, so I liked it. I liked everything I played with this. one of the things I like about it is it has a really clean look to it, and it's kind of job simulator look, and everything works well. The shooting is good, so basically you're in like this supermarket, right? And you have a lady that's talking to you. I think her name is Esther, but don't quote me on that. But she has just, that perfect voice of like a whiny lady that's like talking to you about what to do and all this stuff. And you're a checkout person. Well, in one part of it, you're a checkout person. And so you have food items are coming down this like conveyor belt, and you have to grab the food items and scan them and then put them into these chutes. And so you're doing that. You're trying to scan as many food items as you can. And then on this like conveyor belt that's above you, you have guns that are slowly coming across. And so the more food you scan, the more guns come across. And sometimes there's power-ups and there's different guns. And what'll happen is that there will start to be like a fruit attack. Like she'll be like, there's a fruit invasion going on, you got to deal with it. And so you have to grab the guns and you're shooting the fruit, and it's kind of like waves and stuff like that. I had a lot of fun with it. It felt good. The sound was good. The production values were good. I thought the voiceover was good. The only thing I'll say about this in somewhat of a negative tone is like, it kind of reminds me of duck season from the standpoint that I kind of felt like duck season should be like a $15 game. And I don't know, although I've barely touched this. So maybe there's a lot more to this and there's a lot more scenarios and stuff. But like the one main scenario I was in where you were the checkout guy and you're shooting the fruit and there's watermelons and giant watermelons and sometimes you're throwing grenades. I mean, all of that was great, but it was one of those kinds of things where I kind of wonder, if I play this for 2 days, am I really going to want to play it a third day? So the price I believe is $19.99 for this. It's In Dreams is a publisher and Nearlight is the developer, and they did a great job with a lot of it. And it's really clean, it's smooth, it runs well. I just kind of wonder if there's enough there, especially in a crowded marketplace of so many big banging VR games that are constantly hitting. I mean, this is coming December 19th. We're all going to be playing Fallout,
Yeah, I agree. I think there has to be something else there in this game in order for it to stand a chance. What I've played, so the caveat is I've only played the first 2 stages of this. I'm very early on, but I think it's worth talking about those first 2 stages because it plays very well. And yeah, you're playing this role of a checkout person, and you're just scanning food and then putting it into sort of the separate areas that you need to put this in. But while you're doing this task, you're being attacked by all this fruit that's coming towards you, and you need to shoot it before it sort of takes over. And that's really the game so far. I mean, I'm assuming I think it has to have something beyond that as you progress through it. And I hope it does, but I've not got far enough in order to comment on that just yet. Steve, what did you think?
Like you guys, I thought it was fun. It's unique in the sense that, yeah, it's a wave shooter, but it's sort of chaos management because you're trying to deal with scanning all the groceries while also shooting the fruit. So it's just kind of got this weird micromanaging dichotomy there. Seeing the trailers, I haven't seen any indication that there's anything beyond you being the cashier and you just shooting and going from wave to wave. At this point, I would think that that's gonna be it. Like, doesn't seem like there's anything more. Like when you're in the back room, the employee break room or whatever, and you have the vending machines where you can purchase your gun upgrades and things like that. There's just no signs that I think there's anything more to this game, which is okay because it is a fun wave shooter, and while we don't have a shortage of those, it does have a cool cartoony, kid-friendly look, about as kid-friendly as it can be if you're shooting guns. At least you're not shooting people. So I don't know. I think it all comes down to price. Like if this thing's $10-15, okay. If it's $25, we have an issue. Now In Dreams is the same publisher that brought us Bloody Zombies, and I think that game was very affordable. So I think they have a track record, at least with that game, of bringing games out at a fair price point. So maybe I'm speaking out of turn. Is this game priced yet? Does anyone know what the
Yeah,
price is?
it's $19.99.
Okay.
$20.
Okay. Maybe it is a little on the high side, but it's fun. Like I'm not going to praise it too much, but it's really not a lot bad to say other than maybe the value proposition.
It's kind of like Dick Wild a little bit. Like, kind of reminds me of Dick Wild and Duck Season, kind of in that category.
Yeah. Chris, have you played this?
Yeah, what I like is it's like a wave-based shooter, but I'm not horrified to play it. Like, I don't know, when I played Raw Data back in the day, it's kind of that same thing where there's these people, like the giant watermelons are kind of like these things you have to shoot over and over again, and they're coming from like miles away, so you really have to plan to like kill them before they get to you. So it's just nice having it be a little more kid-friendly. I don't know. I like the art aesthetic a lot. It's one of the more fun wave-based shooters I've played in a while. I didn't really notice, at least when I played it, any penalty for not scanning the groceries right away. Like, they were piling up, and then I just did them all like at once. I don't know if that's like incentivized or not, or how the scoring works with that. But I think
I did the same thing. Like, I let them pile up, and then while I was shooting the fruit, and then after I get a clear spot from the fruit, then I'd quickly scan the groceries, and I kind of went back and forth like that. I think that's maybe what they want you to do. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, no, but it's fun. It's really hectic. I like that type of game. I don't know. I feel like I should show it to people. Like, it's a good one to demo. It looks pretty fun. I think kids would like it, but yeah,
it
maybe
runs well.
Oh, it runs great. It's like that's like the only game I've played today that I don't get lag on. I don't know what's going on with my computer.
Even on those people with just 970s.
even us poor folk.
The other thing I want to mention about this, and I'm sure you guys saw this as well, but where the grenade. The first time you get the grenade, you see that this pin is in it, and you think, well, how do I get the pin out? And instinctively, I'll just put it up to my mouth, and you can pull the pin out you just put it up to your mouth and then move it away again, and the pin's gone, and that's how it works. And it was sort of a revelation to me, because I didn't think that would work, and yet I just instinctively did it. But yeah, it's a great little mechanic, that is. So you've got these grenades that you can pull the pin out and then throw at the enemies as well. So you've got a few guns, a few grenades. You can get these weapons. So as you progress through the game, and you get more credits in order to purchase more weapons, different things like this. The same way it works in a lot of other games. This is the thing. I wonder if there is something beyond what we're seeing at the moment. I hope there's, at least it goes somewhere. I'm not necessarily talking about something like a duck season kind of twist or anything like that. I'm just hoping that there's something beyond the first couple of stages that I've already played.
Like hopefully maybe you could like go into the aisle and then you have to stock food, or I don't know. Like, there could be other like little mini things to do, I guess.
Yeah, even that.
If this game came out in May of 2016, when we first got our Vives, like, people would probably really love this game. It's coming out at a time when we're kind of over wave shooters a little bit. But if you got Dick Wild and you love Dick Wild and you're looking for something kind of similar, it's pretty good. I mean, the only fault I have on it is maybe $5 too expensive.
Yeah. Okay, Chris, we can finish off with something you want to talk about with Rec Room. I think you've been playing a little bit of that, the laser tag in there lately.
Yeah, sure. I was going to mention this last week, and I totally forgot about it, but Rec Room finally released a laser tag update, which is really cool because, I don't know, I love laser tag. I've actually went to one of those like laser tag places where they have everyone suit up and like it's pretty official and stuff. So it's a lot like that in VR. There's, Team Blue, Team Red. I don't know, just the simplicity of laser tag is nice, because I'm not that good at figuring out how each weapon works with how the range and the speed of each weapon and all that. So with it just being one laser gun, you just shoot a laser. If you tag someone, you get points for your team, and you just try to get the most points. So that's really cool. And then it also has bots if like there's not enough players or whatever. So you can also shoot the other players' bots on the other side. But it's really retro. Like, it has those carpets with like the circles that glow, all the neon and stuff. So I think it's good. Obviously, it runs well because, it's a very simplistic art style. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I think we should all play this maybe at some point. It's just like a good thing to play multiplayer wise.
Yeah, I haven't been in Rec Room for a long time, and I really want to go back in because the fact that it's now recently come out on PSVR as well, there's a lot of new people in there, and they're all enjoying it for the first time. And you hear so many great reports about Rec Room, and I've loved it. You know, I've been in there a few times, and I thought it was great. I've just never really felt like I've got into it in the same way that a lot of people have. So I really want to try and experience some of these. The paintball's great. That was the one that I spent probably the most time in when that came out, but that's a little bit old now, so maybe I'll give this laser.
I like this way more than paintball just because it's like, I don't know, it feels easier for me to understand it. It's very easy to see shots and stuff because like the shots are really bright and like it's against a pretty dark background. I don't know, it's just like very, very simple but really fun. So yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, I guess that's pretty much our show this week. So that was episode 63 of VR Roundtable. Thanks for joining us this week. So hopefully you've been listening to this or watching this on YouTube or on iTunes or any other podcast service that you use. If you could leave a comment or leave a review on any of those services, that would be great and very much appreciated. But either way, we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Later.
Bye, everyone.